Thank you. And so moving on to the final session, we'd now like to have our reflective space at the end. I'd like to begin. And so in this forum, we've heard from a number of different speakers, and on each day throughout the course of the next few days, we'll have an opportunity to reflect on what we've heard. And, you know, the participants here, hearing lots of different kinds of information, lots of different expressions. And we'd like to reflect on what is it that you felt? What have you learned, or what have you realized throughout the course of each day? And so we would like to have this little bit of reflective space at the end here. Now, at the end of day one here, we have two guests that I've invited here. So we have Philip, and we also have Nakama Shinichi-san here as well. And so Philip, Shinichi-san, thank you very much for joining us here today. And so Philip, I think you might be on mute. There we go. Thank you. Now, throughout the course of today, we've heard a number of different things. And so firstly, Philip, I'd like to ask you, so I've always, whenever I talk to you, we're always talking in English, even though I'm speaking Japanese right now. So when you and I first met, I understand you're a corporate innovator, I think, originally. And, you know, we talk about, you know, this different ideas, and when we spoke previously in Paris, we talked about innovation, right? And the sort of human aspect of innovation. And, you know, there's creativity, there's you know, there's different aspects to it. But today we heard from Professor Iba at the start, and he was saying, you know, the creation in creativity, and, you know, he touched on a number of different topics there. And so if you have any thoughts on what you've been hearing today, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you very much, and domo arigato, and please forgive me for not speaking Japanese, and thank you to Yumi and Yumiko and Daniel for the excellent translations today. It felt really engaging to be there with you, and a beautiful example of how we are integrated, right? I'm sitting here in Berlin, some of you in Japan, and still we're in different time zones, different places, but we're still coming together to talk about these important things. And I think in general, one of the keys to the 21st century, and in some ways to the survival of the human species, will be that integration of the paradox of I and not I, of I and otherness of the whole. And I thought, you know, Professor Iba did a wonderful job talking about this process of creation. And all three actually highlighted that from different angles. And for him, it was, you know, I felt that personal experience of when I make I happen, then there's an other, you know, res alles, other things, reality. And I have to figure out how to relate to reality and actually get over it and really deeply lose myself in the other and remember that bigger whole so that we can create whole and we can really create and be in line with creation, because we are all life, right? Every one of us is life. I seem to be alive. I seem to be alive. I seem to be life. And if I remember that, then I create. And a beautiful thing that, you know, both Kasuke and Ayumi reminded us of that, because we all have a heartbeat. And when we were sitting there in meditation, and the three of, you know, all of us were feeling a heartbeat together, no matter where we are. And we all have heartbeats, and we all take a shit, right? And so we all have that in common as well. And I love how Ayumi brought that back to that as well. And so this integration, I think, is really key, and remembering that we all individually have a responsibility for the whole, and that we are part of a bigger whole. If we zoom out enough, we're all part of this beautiful pale blue dot that is Earth. We're all part of the same ecosystem. And we've, you know, failed to see that. And as a result of it, we've created linear businesses, and we've created these unsustainable solutions. And I love how Ayumi took it not just from linear to circular, but actually to regenerative, because then it brings it back to really being part of creation, being part of life, because all life creates and grows. So that's some of the thoughts that are in my head right now, and my head and heart are very full at the moment. So thank you.
Wow, thank you. ありがとうございます。素敵なコメン
Thank
トあり
you
がとうござい
very, very
ま
much.
す。まさにその結構
And
今日実はテーマになっているのが
one of the themes we had today was, you know, the concept of whole, right? Of looking at the whole picture. And, you know, you look at the individual, which perhaps may only see part of it, and you have the deeper levels to the individual. But I think these concepts are interrelated. And so we talked about this a little earlier, you know, this shift from ego to echo, right? You know, we have ego and the concept of self, and how can ego and echo, how can they coexist? Not necessarily change from one to the other, but how can we bring those two things together? Because everyone has a different thing that they can contribute. So how do we create a coexistence or a symbiosis between those two different aspects? I think that's a question we have to think about. And we talk about this concept of planetary awareness, right? You know, I'd like to ask you a little bit later about this concept of planetary awareness as well. Now, I'd just like to move to Nakama-san. Just like to move the mic here. And how was the sessions? What did you think? If you have any sort of thoughts you'd like to share with us, and in particular with regards to your work, we're talking about societal change. I think is a core part of your work, and so I think if there are any sort of connections to your work that you heard in today's talk, I'd be very curious to hear it, all your thoughts. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Nakama Shinichi. So I do research into human renaissance, and I work for a corporate group called Omron. And so thinking about, you know, what we feel in society and where it's going to go from here. And so, you know, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to take part here and to think about how where we can go from here. So it's obviously it's very exciting, and I was very excited to hear today. I was very happy to hear, you know, some of the topics we were covering today. And one of the reasons for this is that when Professor Iba was speaking earlier, he was talking about this idea of letting go of control, of not holding on to control. And I think, you know, in my work, when I'm trying to sort of draw the future, I think this is part of my work as well. This is a theme that I come across, and this idea of the vision of the future and how we want to make it, and, you know, in the creation of that vision, I think that's that part of this idea of letting go of control. And so in Omron, you know, we have quite a lot of control in Omron, perhaps too much. And, you know, sometimes when I try to talk about these ideas to my colleagues, I don't really quite get it, and they sort of are wondering what I'm talking about. But when we talking about this idea of creation, and you have sort of and when we're talking about building things, in fact, one of the, it might seem a bit extreme, but really this idea of, it might seem a bit extreme, but this idea of no control, and perhaps that's the better way to do it, I think. And Professor Iba spoke about this, but when you're growing a plant, right? Like you're not, you know, you're growing a plant, you're growing vegetables, it's you don't know what it's going to be. You can just only create an environment to nurture the seed. And, you know, if you take an agricultural approach to creation, I think this is a really good way of looking at it. You know, if you go to the original Earth, And one of that first expression of life is really those seeds growing. And so, you know, it's you know, when we talk about automation, you know, that's kind of the first automation, right? Like it's going to grow and it's going to do its own thing, and you just have to create the environment that's going to support the seed doing its thing. But to move then on to kodou, the art performance that, you know, seeing all these sort of flashing different lights, I think that was a really beautiful expression. And yes, when we talk about life and, you know, the sort of the heartbeats and seeing those sort of, you know, there are the things we can't control, obviously, you know, like our heartbeat, for example. And, you know, it's something I really thought about. And so sorry, we are getting to time. But you know, this link to plants and the similarities there between creation and how plants grow. Philip, I'd just like to ask one thing. You know, in this idea of letting go of control, and the links that has to life. So as an individual, within, for those of us in the human world, you know, this idea of letting go. When we talk about the idea of planetary awareness, and the reason I'm focusing on this is so tomorrow, in tomorrow's session, I think we're going to be talking about this. And so we're saying that talking about the history of the Earth, the history of the planet, right? This is something I think we'll be covering tomorrow. And so the sort of the co-flourishing, co-growth of things, of the growth of both people and the planet. And we're also going to be talking about regenerative leadership, is also a theme we'll be talking about tomorrow as well. And so we'll be hearing from Giles Hutchins, who's the author of that particular work. And so we'll have a session on regenerative leadership. And we'll also be looking at the art and an anthropological study of non-human things as well, for non-human things from an anthropological point of view. So hopefully we'll be able to link it up tomorrow. But with regards to planetary awareness, if there's anything you'd like to share with this idea of planetary awareness, sorry, we don't have a lot of time. Just any thoughts that you'd like to share with us, I would love to hear it. Thank you very much.
I love how Professor Iba said we have to get back to hold the essence, right? Hold the whole picture. And if you think about ourselves, we're all part of this planet, and each one of us is, you know, just a short moment in history, and then we'll be gone one day. But the planet is there, right? And each one of us is creating in every moment how the future is going to live, right? Each one of us is affecting how people in the future will or will not live here anymore. And so I think it's important when we zoom out, and there's this beautiful concept of the overview effect, which many astronauts have had, where we look at the Earth from above and they have a spiritual kind of nearly enlightenment kind of experience because they realize we are part of this, right? I'm separate and I'm also part. And it's that paradox and really growing up into understanding that it's both. It's not either or, it's not the individual or the whole, it's both at the same time. And that in that interplay, that's where the beauty is, right? That's where the real excitement of being alive is. And this is where when we do die, we can look back at our lives and say, I've been part of this. I've actually belonged here. And I think this is the invitation we have now, is to understand belonging on a whole new level, because we can't solve the problems we have, whether it's pandemics or climate. We can't solve them on a national context. We can't solve them alone. We have to do this together. And at the same time, decentralize, like Ayumi beautifully said, you know, we have to decentralize at the same time. And there's this word called global, right, where it's local and global at the same time. We do local activity, each one of us as an individual, understanding that we're part of the whole at the same time.
はい、ありがとうございます。まさにその 自然の大きなそうしたその連続性の中、生命の連
Now,
続性
talking about the connection between the whole and the parts and the whole,
っていうのがすごくテーマになっているなっていうの
I think this is going to be a recurring theme of what all of us disparate individuals can do as part of the greater whole. And in independent society, which is a pretty common theme of the modern day, but we need to get back to perhaps the natural world, right? And sort of understanding the limits of the natural world.
はい、それではですね、
And so, thank you, Philip. Thank you, Nakama-san. Thank you very much for your comments.
ありが
Thank
とう
you.
ございました。はい、多分この後ですね、
So
何時間でも喋り
I think we could probably keep talking about this for hours, but for the time being, we'll just close it for today. And so if we can just going to share my screen.
今日のセッションはこちらでなります。終わりに
And so I just want to show this to finish off for today.
グラフィックレコーダーの方が
We have for those of you who don't mind looking at English and Japanese, we've got it written here. Now in our Facebook group as well, we're going to be sharing this image. And so hopefully you can look at some of these graphic representations of what we had today. These are going to be updated throughout the course of the forum. So I hope you can look at these and enjoy. So tomorrow, we're just quickly going to look at, if you have a look at the homepage, you can see the schedule for tomorrow. The start time tomorrow will be a little bit different from today. So tomorrow, just going to share the schedule.
明日のですね、開始の時間が
We will be starting at
5時20分
at 5:20. From 5, the room will be open from 5:05 Japan time, 5:05 p.m. Japan time, which will be 9:05 CET. So it'll be a little early, the first session to start at 9:20, but the room will be open from 9:05.
CT だと9時20分から、JST だと5時20分からの開始になりますので、
So that is the plan for tomorrow.
いただければと思います。明日もまた、注目のセッションが目白押しですので、
So we will have some great sessions lined up for tomorrow, and we hope you can join us. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on the first day. And we look forward to seeing you over the next couple of days. Thank you very much.